If design ideation is what's keeping you from shipping your iOS apps, watch this video. I'm going to be teaching you how to leverage AI to design the first version of your app so you can ship faster. I have a 4-step process when it comes to designing my apps with AI. Research, ideation, iteration, and then the handoff to SwiftUI. Let's talk about it. I use Perplexity for research. I use either GPT-5 or Claude for the actual design and iteration. And then, of course, we take the code over to Xcode and SwiftUI. Let's start with Perplexity. So I have this prompt here that I use for Perplexity, and we're going to leverage some deep research for this. So I want Perplexity to find trending iOS styles with examples, and then we want to make sure that these styles and suggestions follow the Apple Human Interface guidelines. Let's see what it has to say. All right, after about 5 minutes of research, Perplexity came back with some trending designs for iOS. First, liquid glass, which made me laugh because liquid glass is just the new iOS design. But it's still important to leverage in your apps for when iOS 26 comes out, probably in a few weeks. The next is suggested layouts, which is a style I personally really enjoy and think this is a really cool concept. But it's funny because I'm not really sure how this fits into an iOS app. And then it came back with enhanced minimalism and microtransactions. So this is kind of a cool visual example. And then it went to neomorphism, which I think looks really nice. Gave us some AI-powered like voice concepts, and that's it. The point of this research step is for when you don't know where to start. So if you want like a reference style type or something, Perplexity is really great for that because it can find what's trending, what's working really well, and then you can use it to kind of craft an explanation of a design style. And then you can take that style so as a reference point for Claude or GPT, whatever you use to design your app as a starting point. I just did an example where it basically Claude generated a UI that looked very much just standard like UI kit. And that's not what we're going for here to build a trending kind of money-making app. So what one I like from this is this neomorphism. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy this and use this for Claude. So now let's get into actually designing something. Let's start with GPT-5 because I think that it has a really solid design sense at the moment. I mean, when I say good design sense, I'm not saying that it's the best designer, but what it does do really well is get you from 0 to 1. Because if you're a visual person like me, it really, really helps when I can actually see the ideas that are in my head for the app I'm going to be building. And I think that coding just goes much smoother that way. At a certain point, it's probably worth hiring a designer or using your own design skills to refine your app, leverage user feedback. The point of this is just to get from 0 to 1 for something that looks pretty nice. So I'm going to paste this here, and we'll come back to that in just a second. But the app I'm going to be designing for this video is going to be a productivity app, and it's going to be an AI-powered productivity app. I'm going to leave some things up to AI to help me decide on features and functionalities, because that's not the focus of this, but just so you know what we're going to be practicing with. So I am working on building an iOS app. The goal of this app is to help users be more productive with the assistance of AI. This should be a simple and easy to use app that suggests to-do lists and reminders based on the user's calendar. So basically the idea I came up with as I was writing that was that this app is somehow going to use the user's calendar and leverage AI to keep them organized and keep them on track throughout their day. So to further this, let's see, I want you to help me create a mockup for this app so I can better conceptualize it before I start developing it. See, I want to leverage the neomorphism style for this app. Create a mockup of an MVP amount of screens that focuses on the goal of this app. Okay, so what this prompt is doing is it's instructing GPT to create a mockup for this app. And it's giving it the context that I feel like it needs to do this well, which is I'm just trying to conceptualize here. This is just an MVP, so we're not going to go crazy with it. This is what the app is solving. And then this is the style guide that I'm trying to reference. And I've given it some information there. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and let it do its thing. And I'll be right back. So I've got this prompt. I'm going to go ahead and copy it and bring it right over to Claude so it can do the same thing, so that we can have two side-by-side comparisons of the different taste and design for what each model kind of comes up with. Now, I typically use Opus for this kind of thing, but it eats up a lot of your limits when you use Opus. It gets really like in there when it comes to creating the mockup. So for speed and just conciseness sake, I'm going to use Sonnet 4 because it does still do a pretty solid job, especially when you're specific. So we're going to run a test with Sonnet 4 as well. I typically actually use Claude for these kinds of things, but GPT-5 has honestly been pretty impressive lately. It even helped me with some client work the other day. So you can see it's building the app in real time, and then you'll be able to run this inside of each chat respectively, so you can actually test out the app. This typically takes a few minutes for each one. So I'll come back when they're both finished, and then we'll go through them together. All right, after about 5 minutes or so, we have two mockups from each model that we can go ahead and check out. For GPT, you'll just go ahead and expand the code window and then hit preview. And then you'll get kind of the mockup for this. So one thing I'll say is that when you use a more complicated style for these kind of mockups, I find the results aren't as great as they can be. So this is kind of the mockup that it came with initially, and really it's not that great. It looks like it could be great, but it just like missed on some things initially, which is shocking to me. So let's go and see what Claude did. It's a little bit better, but you'll find it's a little bit funky with some of the like more advanced design concepts. I don't know why there's a tab switcher up here and at the bottom kind of thing. So I think this is kind of funny that it does this, but it's a really good example of like where AI can't carry you all the way, right? It can't do a perfectly great neomorphism app in one shot necessarily. This looks frankly terrible. So what we're going to do now is correct these things. And I don't want to cut any of this out because I want you to see kind of what the iterative process is like, and just know that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like there is work that has to be done for these things to work right and be effective. And there's a level of like prompting expertise that comes into play that you kind of just build up a taste for over time as you're working with these things. For GPT, the main problems are that, well, the app doesn't work. So it looks like this mockup isn't really working. I want to have a much more detailed mockup that I can interact with to better conceptualize this app. I also think the neomorphism, just because I can't spell. Okay. I also think the neomorphism isn't quite right. Let's just focus on a simple and modern style of app for this AI productivity. I really can't spell. Okay. That's just all I'm going to do to correct it and see how it goes. And I'm going to go over to Claude as well and basically do the same thing. So I'm like, at a high level, this concept seems pretty cool, but the neomorphism isn't quite right. Let's do a simpler design that still looks modern and is really user-friendly. Okay, so now we've got two corrections running, and I'm going to let those go for a bit, and then I will come back once they're finished, and we'll see what happens. All right, about 3 to 5 minutes later, we have two new mockups to look at. So I'm going to go back into this and preview this. And well, it's already looking much better because, first of all, there's content in the app from the GPT side of things, which is pretty sweet. So it looks like it wants us to connect our calendar, which I think is cool, an agenda, upcoming meetings, give us some free time. AI is going to generate a plan for us. We can accept or remove these, apply to our schedule. This is pretty cool. All right. I don't know how to get back from here, but that's okay. Not a bad concept. Sometimes you just have to stop and rerun because it misses on things like that. New task. Great. Okay, that's a pretty solid app. I mean, a good starting spot, right? This looks clean. It's modern. It's very simple. I personally kind of like black and white apps. Maybe that's just me, but not bad. We go over to Claude. This is its version 2, which a lot of the same concepts as we saw before, but definitely not a lot of those crazy rendering things. It's got some AI features in here, some smart suggestions. This is a priority app. Oh, okay, that's like a little to-do situation. AI suggestions, weekly planning, cool, some quick actions, lots of great opportunity for app intents. Let's see, our to-do list, and then it's got a little settings screen. So not bad. I think like the happy spot between these two is some sort of combination of them if I were to actually be building this app. So I would probably take a lot of the features that GPT-5 did and you leverage some of this Claude design. If you've done this before, like to me, this looks very Claude designed. It looks like just the style it typically uses. It really loves like cards and big kind of like things like this, like these big bento box style things, which is very characteristic of just the model from what I've seen generally. But this is like a cool looking app. So anyways, now we've got an app. I'm going to basically combine these two. So what I'm going to do is I like all the features that GPT has. So I'm going to say I really like the concept you've created. It just does well with positive feedback, or maybe this is just how I like to talk. I'm not really sure what the real value out of that is, but I find that with positive feedback in a chat session that it stays on track a little bit better if your chat gets kind of long. So I guess I do that in a lot of cases. Will you write a detailed list of all the features you've included in this mockup? Make it in a format that's easy to copy and paste. Okay, so it's going to do that because I want to take all the features that were conceptualized from. Oh, that's cool. As you has a focus timer that actually works. That's so rad. So I want to take all the features that it's come up with here and basically have Claude build them into its mockup instead of the features that Claude did. And I want to leverage Claude's design. So thinking does, like, I don't know if you've used GPT-5 thinking yet, but it does take a while. It's typically slower because it's thinking, but I think it's worth the wait because the outputs tend to be quite a bit better. So, okay. I'm just going to copy this. It looks good enough. And then I'm going to go, let's see, I like some of what you've done here. I want to make some changes. I think we should follow the design of the Apple Reminders app more closely. And these are the features I want to focus on. Paste that in there. And then I am going to grab some screenshots of the Apple Reminders app and throw them into Claude as a reference, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I just went to Google, grabbed some images from Reminders, downloaded them, and then threw them into the Claude chat just as a reference for Claude to have a visual reference of kind of what I'm looking for. And then I'm just going to let it run and see what it comes up with. So you can see at this point, we've made the comparison between the two models, and we've taken some inspiration that we got from Perplexity. And now we're at a diverging point where I like one thing over the other. So instead of just iterating back and forth, because it can take a lot of time, so we are going to just stick with Claude from here on out, because the next step of this, once it's done redoing the design, is we're going to take what it's done and go and basically put it in a way that's really easy for us to bring over into our project. So I'm going to let this go, and I'll come back when it's finished. Okay, it just finished up after about another 5 or so minutes of running this design. So let's see kind of what we've got. It's got a lot of the same features where it's got the connect to your calendar kind of banner and plan my day, new tasks for kind of the main actions. It's got that schedule going, similar kind of pop up there at the bottom, a focus timer. So not bad. What's funny is once this is done, I'm realizing I probably prefer GPT's design, but I think Opus also might have done a better job at actually doing this. So, which is totally fine. But the point of this video is to show you kind of the process and how it just looks in reality. I guess the kind of stuff I go through, on a day-to-day basis of just figuring it out, seeing what works, what's good and what not. But this works for now. So to show you the next step, like let's say we're happy with this design, even though the more I look at it, the less I am happy with it. I'm going to be like, that's great. Give me a basically version of this that I can bring into a SwiftUI app. So there's a few different ways to do this. One is to create a design system. So this works especially well when you're starting a new app, or maybe you're just doing a complete redesign of your app. Is basically you'll give it the context of how you're building your app. So let's say SwiftUI. I want a SwiftUI design system that I can just basically plug and play into my project. So it's really easy for me to use consistent styles and components throughout my app. I want you to create the primary components with proper naming, and so I can copy and paste it into my project. So that's one way. The other thing you can do is have it write a really detailed prompt on explaining the design and the components and things that we've landed on, and you'll just bring that prompt over into something like Cursor or Claude Code, and then instruct it to create a design system or component library for your app. For sake of this video, because I'm not going to open an Xcode project, I'll show you the design system way that I've done before and I think works decently well. And then you're also removing one layer of abstraction where you're hoping that Claude Code interprets the prompt the same way that this chat did if you are really happy with your design. This way you just get exact code from this and you can kind of plug and play. So this design looks great. Sure. I want to use it in my actual project. I'm building this app with SwiftUI. So I want you to create a design system that I can use to easily access this design in my app and have reusable components for consistency. So this is where you want to be as specific as you can for your project. So if you have like a preferred naming convention, this is where you would kind of tell it like, I want my colors to be named, or to be able to be called, if that's even a sentence, like this. For example, like, let's see, AP blue, AI productivity blue, if that's my naming convention, right? I want my components to be named AP primary button. Okay, I want to keep this simple and not be over engineered or bloated. Give me a easy to plug and play design system for my new app. Something like that. So this is a really good point to be very specific for your project. However you want to do this, you can also you leverage things like font. So if you have a font you're using, just have it create a easy to access font library and stuff, just saving you time in the future. Obviously, this is not quite as helpful if you have an existing app, unless you're probably going under a major redesign. But in that case, you would just make sure all of your code practices in that project are make Claude aware of them so that you can just copy and paste over. And this is another step that you're probably going to want to iterate over a few times with Claude so that it kind of gets it right before you just copy and paste a bunch of code into your project. It's definitely really easy to take on a bunch of tech debt if you're not careful with the strategy. So just be aware of that, but it's doing some nice things here. So it's like AP card with header, and it's got a spacing component, and then our fonts and things like that. So that's one really nice way to do this. And then I would, iterate over this, make sure the code looks how I want it to for my project. And if you notice it's doing a few things funky, just, tell it and iterate on this. And then you'll be able to have a design system easily accessed in your app. And then you can just go through and leverage Cursor or Claude Code, and it will already have this as a reference to build out the rest of the application, build out the functionality. So a bonus tip for this too, have it create a markdown file explaining the system and explaining the kind of design and like conventions that you would use for your app. So when you have a markdown file and you're in like Claude Code or Cursor, you can reference that file and be, hey, I want you to build the screen with my design system at this file. This is how it works. And then it just keeps everything in context. Because I've seen it where if you're not doing things like this, that the app starts to get inconsistent. Like you'll have a primary button, but then it will look inconsistent like 3 screens later, and it just gets kind of messy and makes your app not look as quality as it could. So it gives you some use examples, and then you're good to go. So that's how I basically design MVPs for projects. And I use this to mock up ideas with clients. I get on calls with them and do this live, or I record a Loom video and show them a few iterations, different ideas, just to help them kind of move down the pipeline faster and get their product out the door sooner. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have additional tips or strategies that you would add to this. If you want more content like this, check out our school community, Swift Intense Pro, where we walk you through a 14-day roadmap to go from idea to app in 14-day, leveraging AI techniques just like this one. We share prompts, workflows, and you get direct access to Stephen and I for feedback and questions. See you in the next one.